All right, so it's 12 p.m. and we're going to begin on time because today's session might be a little bit more to cover than other sessions. Good afternoon to everyone. I am Michaela Peck from the Office of Distance Learning. Thanks for joining today's session. In today's session, we'll be looking at quiz creation in Moodle. All right, can I have a show of hands whether you're using the raise hand feature or the chat feature of any lecturer who has previous experience or prior experience using the Moodle quiz feature? Okay, Mr. Clark. Okay, Dr. Melville, Miss Yumuro, Mr. Nesbeth, Miss Moore. Okay, excellent. All right, thanks for indicating by show of hands.
Miss Peck, quick question. Will today's session be recorded?
Yes, Mr. Clark, the session is being recorded, yes.
I'm
All
sorry, I
right.
have never used the Blackboard before, so
No, man,
forgive
that's
me.
all right. That's okay. I paused because I realized that additional persons were joining the session, so I'm going to pick up. All right, so as mentioned earlier, today we'll be looking at the quiz feature in Moodle. If you are new to the university, or if you're new to these training sessions, I'll just brief you. We have been doing a series of summer semester training sessions addressing different tools within the Moodle platform. All right. So the very first session that we did was way back in June, which covered Moodle as well as its fundamentals, so Moodle basic training. And then we delved into the different aspects of Moodle at the intermediate level. All right. So what I'm gonna do, and hopefully it won't be too much for me to find, it won't be too hard for me to find. I'm just gonna look for the just looking for the training schedule that would have been shared weeks ago, because I just want us to get an idea of what we have been covering if you are new, because we're basically moving towards the end of the training sessions. All right, so I have found it and you should be seeing it on your screen now. Right, so we started in June. We covered the Moodle basic training. We covered intermediate session starting from June 9. We looked at tools for collaboration. We then looked at the different tools in Moodle that allows for knowledge acquisition. We looked at interactive content, which is the HTML5 package. We looked at how to do groups and groupings, how to create assignments, how to mitigate plagiarism. And last week we looked at configuring your gradebook. Now you'll realize that everything is a week back because we had a delay in start. So it's today's July 28th. We're actually looking at online quiz and exam creation. Next week we will look at quiz troubleshooting, and then the other week the final training session will be the advanced Moodle training. Now additional information as well is that all of these sessions that we are doing, we actually have the online training module for each session. Okay, so whenever we listen or tune into the training session, we're expected as lecturers to go over to the online training modules to demonstrate your understanding of what has been taught. So you're basically required to action the different tasks. So I'm going to stop sharing the flyer now and I'm going to start sharing my screen just to show you exactly what I'm talking about. I know most of us are familiar, but I understand that we have some new faces, so I don't want anybody to be left in the dark. Okay, so you should be seeing my screen now. As I had earlier indicated, the first training session that we did was for the Moodle basic training. All right, the training modules are online for every single training that we do, that we offer. Good. You are expected to take each training modules, or at least a different units within each training module. All right, if you scroll through, you'll see the different units. First unit looks at course creation, the next looks at facilitator visibility, course modification, creating labels and pages. So the basic training essentially looks at the creation of resources in Moodle. And what we refer to as resources in Moodle are different tools that can be used for content presentation, right? You are not necessarily required to complete each module in its entirety. You can complete different units. When you complete different units, badges are released to say that you have successfully completed those units. If you complete the course in its entirety, you will receive a certificate of completion. So that is it for the basic training. We are in the intermediate training, and we have been here for a while. And each unit as well has different titles because we explore different areas. All right, we're down now to unit 7, which I'm scrolling down to, and that looks at initiating and setting up a quiz in Moodle. So this is where we are. And of course, I'm happy that lecturers have already started to, take the different courses, the training modules rather, and to take the different units, and they have been receiving their badges. And the lecturers who have already completed the training modules in its entirety or in their entirety have received their certificates of completion. Okay, so coming to the training sessions and just hearing me and not being able to do it on your own is not sufficient. You understand? This is why we have created this platform for you to go in and do the hands-on work, create your own course, make the course interactive and engaging, add your own resources, add your own activities. Okay, and we actually give you a sandbox space, so you're creating your own course, you're adding your own course content, you're designing the course based on your preference and your students' needs. Okay, so just thought I would bring us up to date as it relates to that. Now, today's session focuses on initiating and setting up a quiz, and from the flyer I had shared earlier, you'll see that next week looks at quizzes as well, because the quiz feature is very broad. It's a lot to cover in one sitting. However, for next week, we'll be looking at how to address technical issues and troubleshooting, because there are so many things that can go wrong. During quiz creation, after quiz creation, students complaining to say they weren't able to do this, they weren't able to do that. There's so much involved, and I don't believe everything can be handled in this particular session. Hence the reason why I've split the sessions. Okay, so as a lecturer, you can use quizzes in Moodle to evaluate your students' understanding of material that you have given them to class, given to them in class, or content you have given to them in class. All right, and if you were a part of an earlier training, probably about 3 weeks ago, you would have seen that a quiz can be administered using different activity tools within Moodle. For example, with the lesson tool, you can create quiz. With the interactive H5P tool, you can create a quiz. However, today we're looking at the standard Moodle quiz activity. And the Moodle quizzes consist of a wide variety of quiz types that allow for multiple choice questions, true or false, short answer, essay type, drag and drop matching, and the list goes on. The beauty about the quiz activity is that it allows you to administer a wide range of quiz questions using a selected layout and order, and it allows you to provide different kinds of feedback based on how a student performs on the quiz. And of course, as a lecturer, you get to control the ways in which students can access the quiz. Now, we have something called the quiz category, right? So this basically allows you to, how would I frame it now? It basically allows you to, in an organized and easy way, create a central space for your quiz questions to be hosted. So it is called the quiz category. So it is very important when we're adding quiz questions, especially when we're doing bulk importation. It's important for us to have a category that houses the quiz questions. Very important, because you don't want to upload the quiz questions to Moodle and then you can't find them. So it's good to create a central space where when you're looking for the questions, you remember, oh, I had put it in a category called final quiz. And you'll be able to easily refer to that quiz category and to grab all the questions. All right. Okay. It's also important to note that a quiz activity in Moodle can be configured in a variety of ways, and of course this is dependent on your andragogical goals. So for example, you can configure a quiz to have no time limit, right? Or the quiz can be timed such that students have a set number of minutes in which to complete it. So these settings control a quiz activity separately from the actual content of the quiz. So that means that configuring a quiz and adding questions to a quiz are two different things, which I'll be demonstrating shortly as well. So the order goes like this. Once you have questions in your question bank and you have a configured quiz activity, you can edit the quiz activity to select questions from the question bank and arrange them in your quiz according to how you want them to appear for the students. All right. And the last step is to configure how you want Moodle to administer and to score your quiz. Once you configure scoring, you can release a quiz simply by making it available by using the dates feature or visible, by unhiding it so that your students or you, well, unhiding it to your students, or you can control access to your quiz using a variety of methods, such as you can restrict the quiz to give certain students extended time, or you can reopen a closed quiz to allow particular students to retake it. Right? And once students make attempts on the quiz, you can review their attempts and you can monitor their progress. Moodle will automatically score the majority of question types in the quiz activity, but you can also manually override the grade or change the grade calculation schema. And we looked at the gradebook feature last week. We also looked at how you can override grades in the gradebook. Also, bear in mind that Moodle cannot mark essay type questions. All right, so there are questions you'd have to go in and manually mark, and the essay type question is a perfect example of that. Okay, so enough of the talking. I'm gonna start demonstrating by using my Moodle demonstration course, and the course is empty. Okay. All right, can a bright spark tell me what's the very first thing I need to do to add the quiz activity to my course? You can just raise your hand and I will ask you to open your mic. Okay, Mr. Clark.
I think you
Miss
need to turn.
Angus, you were beat. Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
I think you mean you need to turn on editing to be able
Turn the
to.
thing on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, perfect. That's the correct answer. I believe that is what Miss Angus would have said also.
Yes, it is.
I thought so. All right, so what I failed to point out, every single session that you come to is recorded. All right, it's something I normally mention at the beginning of every session. Every session you come to is recorded. I'll just quickly refer back to the module I just had opened, the training module I had opened, and you realize that the training session recording for each week is placed at the top of that respective unit for every single week. All right, so if you have missed a training session, you can always refer back to the recording by accessing the training modules online. If you don't have access to this module, you will know, because when you log into Moodle, if you're not seeing it on your dashboard, that means you're not enrolled. Simply send me an email and I'll just quickly add you and you'll be able to gain access. All right. During the session, if you wish to speak, you can raise your hand. I'll acknowledge you and you can take the mic, or if you're more comfortable documenting your question or concern in the chat, you can do so. Okay, so Mr. Clark advised to turn editing on, which I did. So I clicked on turn editing on, and I know editing is on because I'm seeing the edit features across the page. Now, within topic 1, I'm going to click on add an activity or resource, and I'm going to click on the quiz feature. Good. And the first field requires me to give my quiz a name. So I'm going to call this demo quiz. The box below allows you to enter a description. So you can give instructions to your students here. All right, students, you're required to answer all questions. Anything you want to tell them. It can be voice instructions if you prefer. So you can use the mic to record audio. You can use the different features to modify how your text appears. So if you want to center, italicize, bold, underline, you can do all of that using the editing features. If you want these instructions to be displayed on the course page, you tick this little box. All right, we don't normally advise if it's a lot. If it's like a line of instruction, then you tick it. But remember that when students click on the quiz, they'll be able to see the instructions regardless. Next, timing. You want to open the quiz and you want to close the quiz, right? So by default, the system sets it at today's date, so July 28th. So let's say I wanted this quiz to be opened midday. I have 12 p.m. All right, and let's say I want it to be closed tomorrow, the 29th, all right, at midday. I have that set. Okay, but the time limit. So if I don't set a time limit, this basically means that they can go in and anytime between 12 today and 12 tomorrow, they can be in the quiz. But if I set a time limit of, say, 1 hour, 60 minutes, what this is saying is that doesn't matter what time between today at 12 and tomorrow at 12 that they go in, they only have 60 minutes to complete, regardless of the time and the date stated here. All right, very important to note. Now, you get to decide what happens if the time expires on your student. There are three options. When time expires, do you want their open attempts to be automatically submitted to the system? Do you want there to be a grace period where open attempts can be submitted but no more questions can be answered? Right? So how this works, if an attempt is overdue, then the student can no longer answer any more questions. But during the submission grace period, they may still go to the summary page and click the submit button. If they submit in that time, their attempt is counted. If the students do not submit before the end of the grace period, their attempt status will be recorded as never submitted. So let me just show you, for example. If I click on this, I get the option to specify the grace period. So this could be 30 minutes, it could be 10 minutes. All right, and of course, this is only enabled if this option is selected. And then we have attempts must be submitted before the time expires or they are not counted. All right, the best option that we normally recommend is open attempts are submitted automatically. So even let's say the student's electricity is terminated and they're in the middle of the quiz, we want to know that wherever they had reached in the quiz, their attempts will be submitted. Okay, let's move down to grade. Remember last week we looked at grade categories. We looked at categorizing or creating rather folders in the grade book. So I created some grade categories the last week, but because I cleared out the course and I reset the grade book, there are no grade categories. So if no grade categories are in the grade book, you won't see the listing shown. You'll only see uncategorized. All right, Miss Angus, you can take the mic.
Yes, thank you, Miss Peck. In regards to the grace period, suppose sometimes you are advised to give the students like an extra 10 minutes, and we put that in the time that's allotted for the quiz. Could we do we have to do that, or can we use the grace period instead?
No, man, so the grace period, so if this has to do it when the time expires. So let's say the time expires on the student. So if it is that you want to give them, is it that you want to give everybody an extra 10 minutes?
Well, normally we do that. Like if the quiz is hour and a half or hour and a quarter, would give them 5 extra minutes in the writing of the paper. But the grace period would enable them to get additional time. That's what.
Right.
And
right. So in the case, if the time expires, that is how the grace period will come into effect, because that option has to do with, let's say the time runs out on them, or their electricity is terminated, or they lose access to the internet during the quiz. That is how the grace period comes in effect. So if it is a case where you actually want all students to benefit from a consistent time duration for the quiz, I would set it up right here within this area. If it is that you want all students to consistently benefit from the same time.
Oh, so you use the grace period for specific students?
No, man. So it's specific for students if it is that some students lose electricity, lose the internet, or their time runs out on them.
Oh,
So
so
here it says when time expires. You see it here, what happens if the time expires?
oh, I see what you mean. So
Yeah,
even
man.
if the electricity doesn't come in 1 hour after, they can still submit.
Repeat that, Miss Angus.
Sorry,
Hello?
sorry, Miss Peck. I was saying that when the time expires, even if their electricity goes and it
Mm-hmm.
returns like an hour later after
Right.
the time, they would still be able to submit after that time.
After that time, right?
Oh,
After the quiz expires. That's correct. And they'll be given a grace period. So you get to give them the amount, you get to specify the amount of time they would have to submit. All right. Is that clear, Miss Angus? You can take the mic, Miss Angus. I was asking if it's clear.
sorry,
I
sorry,
think I
Miss
said,
Peck. I had a break in the internet service just now. So sorry
okay.
about that. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So it's, okay. All right. Cool. All right. So let me just set back the option to what it was originally. All right. So we were at grade category. I had explained that you can enter grade to pass. So what will happen here is, if the system records a student's grade, let's say being 4.9, and the grade to pass is 5, which is 5 out of 10, 50%, the system will tell the student that they have failed this particular assessment. All right, so if you want, if that's important for you to allow students to be notified by the system as it relates to their results in that way, then you can enter the option. You can enter the grade to pass there. No attempts allowed. You can give students unlimited attempts. Let's say it's a practice quiz. You can give them unlimited attempts, or you can give them only one attempt if it's a more strict assessment or a graded quiz. Okay, so you can give them up to 10 attempts, or attempts can be unlimited. Now with layout, you get to decide, as I had earlier mentioned, how the questions are issued to the students. So do you want every question on a new page, or do you want all questions on one page, or do you want every 2 to 50 questions on a new page? To mitigate cheating, and as you know, that is something that we can't completely eliminate, because students, trust me, they know all the different ways to try to in some way cheat. What we normally recommend at the Office of Distance Learning is that you put as small a number of questions on each page as is possible. So we normally recommend every question to have a new page. What would happen, and even in terms of the shuffling feature as well, which would accompany this, what would happen is that each student would get a different order of questions. All right, not different questions unless you're pulling from different question banks, but a different order of questions. And of course, student A's question 1 might be student B's question 10. So this just helps to mitigate cheating. All right, so question behavior. Let me just see what's under new. Show more here. Right, so under show more, we have navigation method, and a lot of persons do know about this option. But with this option, you get to determine how students navigate the quiz. Free is the option that is set by the system by default, and this basically means that the students can go to question 1, jump to another question, revisit question 1, and jump all over the quiz as they want to in a very free manner. If it is sequential, that means that their navigation is locked, so they can't jump from one question to the other. The system takes them in a chronological order from question 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and they can't refer back to any questions. Okay, so you get to decide which navigation method based on the type of quiz you are giving to your students. Do you want to shuffle within questions? I just spoke on that. This also helps to mitigate cheating. Default option is yes. We'll let that stay as yes. How questions behave. So we have 7 different options. If I told you I know what each option is, that would definitely not be true. By default, the option is deferred feedback, which basically means that after the student has made their submission, the system would then let them know what their results are. However, so basically, as the name suggests, it defers the feedback. However, you still as a lecturer get to control that process. All right. Of course, immediate feedback is basically where the student receives feedback while they're taking the quiz. You have interactive with multiple choice. So this is basically where the student is taking the quiz and they are receiving feedback, and also they're given multiple choice for each question or multiple attempts for each question. All right. So we're going to stick to deferred feedback, and we're going to move down to review options. So I want to show you something. With deferred feedback, you'll realize that during the attempt is completely grayed out. All right. However, if I selected immediate feedback, you'd realize that this now becomes enabled during the attempt. All right. But we're going to select deferred feedback. And look, we still get to control. If with deferred feedback, I don't want my students to get the results immediately after the attempt, I can disable all of these. All right. If I'm using deferred feedback, I don't want my students to receive their results later while the quiz is still open, I still get to disable these. All right. After the quiz is closed, if I want my students to receive feedback, then I get to select what exactly I want them to receive. Do I want them to see whether their answer is incorrect or correct? Do I want them to see the marks, the specific feedback, the right answer? I get to select each individual feedback I want the students to get. So this is very important. You have to pay attention to this section because sometimes we just skip over it and then the students are not able to see what the right answer is. Probably all the students haven't taken the quiz and they might share the answers with their classmates. So this is very important. We have to zoom in on this option when we're setting up our quiz. All right. Okay. Next, we're moving down to appearance. There's really nothing to change here. I mean, I wouldn't change anything. Okay, it's really up to you as a lecturer. We're going to move down to extra restrictions on attempts. If it is that you want to require that students enter a password, this is an option that you can enable. So you can enter the password in this section here. Why would you use this option? Lecturers have used this option where they are setting the quiz just for a specific set of students, and they only want the students to have the password to access the quiz. All right, but there's also a better way to control that. Let us scroll down. The option that says restrict access, we get to set students' names. So if we only want Mary Brown and we only want Jim Harriot to access the quiz, we can click on add restriction, click on user profile, and we get to choose that the student with the first name, Tom, right, and with the last name, so surname, where is that? Harriot, that student alone gets the access. And you realize here it says the student must match all of the following. So the student has to be named Tom Harriot to be able to access the quiz. And of course, you can add additional names if you want to. Okay, and it's also important, as I pointed out in a training couple after back, it's important that the names are in all caps. If not, the system won't recognize that particular student, and this is possible for most activities within Moodle. You can restrict access by using the user profile field option. Okay, all right, so we have looked at the most important features. We are going to scroll down and click on save and display. We're not saving and returning to course because we haven't set up the quiz just yet in terms of adding the questions. We're going to click on save and display. Good. And instructions are shown, and additional instructions based on system configurations are shown as well. Attempt allowed 1, time limit is 1, grade to pass 5 out of 10. Okay, so it says no questions have been added just yet. So we're going to click on edit quiz now to add the questions, and as you would know, questions can be added in 2 ways. We have the option of importing questions, and this is most effective when we have multiple questions. When I say multiple, I mean like a bulk load, a lot of questions, not like 10 or 3. All right, and then we have the option of adding the questions individually. We're going to be exploring both options. So let's say I wanted to add my questions one by one. There's a little add button to the right of my screen. I have 3 options. I have add a new question, add from question bank, add a random question. Let's explore adding a new question. So this is how you add the questions individually, and it shows the list of all the question types that Moodle allows for. Okay, so the first question we're going to be adding is an essay type question. That is the 6th option from top. I'm just going to double click the radio button. Okay, and question name can be the same as question text. However, I normally put the question names, I normally number them. So I would call this question 1, and I would put my question text here. Okay, I have no questions in mind, so I'm just going to quickly write something. What is Moodle? That is my first question, and this is an essay type question. I don't mind me using an online keyboard. My keys work when they feel like working. Okay, so this is my question. What is Moodle? Remember, you can always insert emoticons, pictures, videos to support the questions you're asking. If you want to put in an audio clip, links, tables, it's up to you. Good. What is Moodle? Okay, so by default, the system has 4 marks allotted for essay type questions, but we can change this. I'm going to change this to 3. Okay, and I can set a general feedback for this question if I want to. Good. Now, under response options, it's important to note that we have 3, 4, 5 different options. I normally advise lecturers to give the option of HTML editor or editor with file picker, because this allows students, it basically gives students the same box here that you're seeing with all of these options. Okay, if you give them the option of plain text, they'll just get the box with none of these options. So very important to note. All right, the HTML editor with file picker, let's say there is a Word document or any other type of document they want to upload that supports their answer. It could be a drawing that they do or something of the sort. This option with file picker enables them to upload a file. Okay, all right, and then now the next option says require text. Do you want text input to be optional, or do you want to require the student to enter text? So if it is a type of question where text input is not necessary, you can put text input is optional. If it is one where they're required to enter text as part of their answer, then you select require the student to enter text. And then we have the box size. For essay type questions, you never know how much your students need to write, right? So I would say max it out and put 40 lines, because we don't want to anyway restrict them, for certain questions. And then here comes restriction. Do you want to restrict the minimum word count that they can actually type and the maximum word count? So if you want to say in no less than 500 words, you are required to such and such, then you can actually use these options to limit them. So let's say maximum word is 1,000. I could enable this and type in 1,000. Let's say minimum words is 300. Enable this and I type in 300. All right, and of course, if you want, I'm not sure how different this option is from the file picker option, but it says, do you want to allow attachments? Okay, so if we're allowing attachments, we get to decide how many attachments we want students to upload. Okay, so if I click on one, I'm assuming they'll be only able to upload one file. right? And then of course you can choose the accepted file types. If you click on this button here that says choose, it specifies the different file types. Let's say you only want your students to upload Word documents, PDF documents, documents of that sort. You can click on document files, all right? And if I only want my students to upload PDF documents, I would hit PDF, scroll down and click on Save Changes so they can only upload PDF formatted documents. Okay, and then I get to choose the maximum site upload for this particular question for the attachment. All right, and then I scroll down. Now on the response template, you can set up a template for response under grader information. Let's say you have multiple persons, lecturers grading. Is there any important information you want to give to these graders? You can enter that in this box here. All right, and then we scroll down, click on Save Changes. So all of these options don't have to be changed by you, just showing that the options exist and you can select based on your preference. Save Changes. All right, and we're going to preview the question. So if I click on the magnifying glass here, this is what the question looks like. You see how big this box is? And it has the file picker here, and it shows the student the document files that it supports, that this question supports, and it shows them the maximum file size as well here. And it says one file alone can be uploaded. All right, and it shows the student this question is marked out of 3. Okay. All right, now let's add another question. So this time we're going to add a much simpler question. Let's add a multiple choice question. So we click on add. So it's important to note if you want the question to appear before or after, that is how you would decide which of the add buttons to click. So if I want this question to appear before question 1, I'd click add up top. If I want it to appear below question 2, I'd click the add button below. All right, so add again, a new question, multiple choice. All right, and we're going to call this one question 2. In the question text box, we're going to enter what does LMS stand for. Okay, all right. Now we're going to scroll down. Default mark for these types of questions, you can see the system has 1. All right, you can enter general feedback here. Do you want this to be a question that accepts one correct answer only or multiple correct answers? Okay, so if the question actually has multiple correct answers, you would select this option. Okay, how do you want the choices to be numbered? By using A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, or do you want Roman numeral numbering? Or do you want no numbering? You get to decide. So this has to do with numbering the choices, not the actual question, because the system automatically numbers the questions using 1, 2, 3. All right, so for the choices, I want A, B, C in common letters. Good, and we scroll down. So now in these boxes, we get to enter the different choices, and we're not limited to the amount of choices, because even after 5 choices, you can add additional choices. All right. Okay. So for choice 1, LMS stands for Learning Mutual System. That is the first option. If that is a correct answer, in grade, we would select 100%. That is not the correct answer, so I'm leaving that at none. And in the feedback box, I'm going to put, you have selected the incorrect response. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. And then next, choice 2, we're going to give them 3 options. All right. Choice 2, learning management system. So this is a correct answer. So for the grade drop down, we would select 100%. Good. And then choice 3, we're going to put This is not the correct answer, so none. So for feedback for choice 2, we can enter you have selected the correct response. Right, and it doesn't have to be boring text. You could get a GIF image, which is an image in motion from the internet, and plug it in here with a thumbs down or thumbs up. Good. Choice 3 feedback, you have selected the incorrect response. So we're going to scroll down, save changes, and preview our question. All right, and I said the system numbers the question, and this is what it looks like. Let's attempt one more question using the individual add question feature. True or false question. So add a new question, true or false. And this one is question 3. Okay, so the true or false question, Moodle is also referred as a content management system. All right, and the false mark is 1. You're simply going to enter what the correct answer is. If the correct answer is false, you select that. If that correct answer, the correct answer is true, you select that based on the statement you have here. All right, and of course you can enter feedback for each response. Right? Okay, very simple setup. We click on save changes, and this is what the quiz looks like. Okay, let's say now we actually wanted to break the quiz down into sections. All right, so we don't want the quiz to appear as questions all together in one section. Like say you want to have section A, section B, section C. You can use the pencil option here to enter section names. All right, so I'm going to just click on this, and I'm going to type section A here, enter on my keyboard to save the section. If I click on add here, there is no option to enter section because there's no question that follows after section 3. But if I click on add below section 2, you'd see the option to add a new section because there's a question that follows after question 2. But before we do that, let us explore bulk importation of questions. If we have a lot of questions, how can we actually get them over to Moodle instead of having to do them in a very time-consuming way, as I've just demonstrated? Now, Moodle accepts several formats for importing questions. You have the exam view format, you have AKID format, you have gift for quite a number of formats, probably about 7 to 8 different formats. All right. The ones I am most familiar with, and I would say I'm most familiar with them because they're the easiest ones, are the gift format, some persons beg to differ, and the AKID format. So for today's session, I'll be demonstrating the gift format. However, in the resources I have left for this particular training, in the online training module, you will see different formats contained in the resources shared. And I actually have a PDF demonstrating the gift format. Okay, so I have the gift format up here as well. And you will see, let me just scroll down to some quick examples and zoom in for us. Okay, you will see these are the different layout options. Well, not layout options. These are the ways in which you actually have to write each question in terms of the format it has to follow for the system to accept it. All right. For the true or false question, you enter the question, the name of the question, and then you put in curly brackets if it is true or false. You can type out the word true in all caps, or you can put T in the curly brackets. For the multiple choice question, you have to enter the question, put an open curly bracket, and then you start listing the options. When you're listing the options, you have to put the equal sign before the correct answer and the tilde before the incorrect answer. If you want to leave a feedback, you have to put the pound key or the number sign before the response. All right, and we have the fill in the blank, which we call short answer questions in Moodle. All right, so with this option, you list the question in curly brackets, you put all possible answers for that question. And we have matching, we have math range, we have numeric, and we have the essay type. So let us explore three different, the most popular question types right now. Now, can anybody tell me how this will be represented in terms of what software do I have to have on my computer in order to import the gift format questions? Does anybody know at all? Can raise your hand. Can anybody tell me how I can get what platform or what software, sorry, I have to use, or which tool I have to use to import these questions into Moodle? Can you hint? It's not Microsoft Word.
Photoshop.
Who is that?
Mr.
That's
Clark.
Mr. Clark.
Yeah.
All right, good try, but no, anybody wants to help Mr. Clark? That's Miss
Excel.
Mason.
Excel.
Good try, but it's not Excel. I think the next person that answers will have the correct answer. Not Excel. Anybody else wants to try? It starts with an N. Miss Brown, you can take the mic. Repeat that.
Notepad.
Notepad, that's correct. Excellent. All right. Okay. So Notepad is a software that comes default with all Windows machine. If you're using a different type of machine, for example, Macintosh, like the Apple, you can download and install Notepad++. All right, so I'm going to open Notepad on my computer, and I am going to start with the multiple choice question. So just for quickness, I'm going to be reusing the same question I have here. All right, so the question, the first thing I'm required to do when observing the gift format is just to write the question. So what does LMS stand for? All right, so I am going to put my question mark at the end here. Okay, and then I'm going to start listing the possible options for the question. Now, before I do that, to let the system know that I'm through with my question and ready to list the possible options, I have to insert a curly bracket. Okay, so I'm going to shift curly bracket, and then I'm going to start listing my options. From the gift format document just shared, you realize that the options are listed horizontally. You can list them vertically if you prefer. I prefer to list them, well, they're listed horizontally in the document, but I prefer to list them vertically because it's neater that way to me. So it doesn't matter as long as they're there, observed in a certain format. So I'm going to list the possible options. Okay. And I'm finished with the listings. I'm going to now close the curly brackets. All right. Now, to indicate what is correct, what is incorrect, before each option that is incorrect, I'm going to put the tilde. All right. So shift tilde, that is incorrect. Shift tilde, this is incorrect as well. And before the correct option, I'm simply going to put an equal sign. And that is it for my multiple choice question. So let's go over that. You have the question, open a curly bracket, list your possible options, close the curly bracket to indicate the question is over. All right, and then you put the different symbols based on what is incorrect, based on what is correct. And we're through. Now we're going to do an essay type question, and to let the system know that we are moving on to a different question, we don't only need to close using a closing curly bracket. We also need to create a space between each question. All right, so I'm going to enter and start my next question. Next question, what is Moodle? Okay, and then this is probably the easiest question. We just put an open curly bracket, open and close curly bracket. The system will use this to create a box, the HTML box. That is how you do the essay type question. All right, and the next question, true or false question. Right, and in curly brackets, we are going to put T, capital T. We could also write out the word true. All right, so those are the top 3 question types in Moodle. So let's say we have these questions. Let's say it's like 100 questions or 50 questions, and we want to import the questions. What we have to do is to save this notepad document as a text file. Okay, so we're going to click on File, Save, and we are going to give the file a name. So I'm going to call this demo quiz. And always ensure that the file type is not all files, but .txt. All right, so I'm going to just put this on the desktop so I can grab it easily and quickly. Click on Save. All right, and we're going to now import these questions to Moodle. When I was at the beginning of the session and I was talking about the quiz, I mentioned something about question banks, and I also mentioned something about yes, you can import great matching questions. So the format for matching questions is right here. So probably I should import this as well. So let's just copy it. So I will explain the format. So Dr. Telfon, not for the Aiken format though. All right, for the gift format. Very important to note. The Aiken format only supports importation of multiple choice questions. One of the main reasons why I didn't demonstrate that format. Good. Okay, so which animal eats which food? This is a matching question. We have the same curly bracket here, and we have the options being listed. All right, so the option listed here is cat. We have a little dash, and we have the right arrow, or we'd call this the greater than sign, right? And then we have the answer, and we have the same for the dog option. Okay, all right. Would you have to edit quiz afterwards to add pictures if necessary? This can be done when writing the questions. Excellent question, Mr. Nesbeth. You have to edit the quiz after to insert any pictures, any type of media you have. You have to modify it after for that. And that can be time consuming as well, but that is the only way you can do it. Okay, good. All right, so we are still here. We're going to include the matching question. I'm going to save again since I added a second fourth question type. Fourth question, so save. All right, so we have multiple choice question, essay type question, true or false question, and the matching question. Good. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm just going to rewrite this for myself. So the symbols, I don't know if you have noticed this, very important to note. So let me just quickly open a Word document. Let's say I have my questions here. Let's say that is a question. If I copy this question, Control C, go to my notepad document and paste it here, Control V, you'll realize that the double quotes look, you can see which one is open, you can see which one is closed, just as it is in Word. However, in Notepad, this is what the curly brackets, not curly brackets, this is what the double quotes look like. You see the difference? So if I actually import my question with this format, Moodle will tell me that there's an error in my question. So the symbol has to be the one that is originally used in Notepad. Very important. So for that reason, I'm just going to remove this and retype it myself, just to ensure that it's the same one. Sorry, that is in Moodle. That is in Notepad. All right, sometimes some lecturers send emails or call and they're saying that there's an error, but they can't see the error. Sometimes that is the error. That is the error. The symbols have to be the same or original to what is in Notepad and not what is in Word, because sometimes we do the questions in Word, we copy and we paste it in Notepad. I say no, just do them originally in Notepad, or if you prefer to actually do it in Word and then copy and paste it to Notepad, you can use the option to find and replace. All right, so you find what? You just copy the double quotes from Word, put it here, replace with the double quotes in Notepad. You can see the difference. Click on replace all, and it will replace all of the double quotes for you so that they resemble the one that is in Notepad. All right, so I'm going to save again, file save, and let's look at how we import. So remember at the beginning of the session, I mentioned the question, the quiz category, I mentioned the question bank. How am I going to get the questions here? Let's go back to the main course page, and there is an option called quiz category. Okay, so to find that option, top right of my screen, click on the gear option, click on more. Under course administration, we're going to look at question bank, and we have the quiz category option here. So to import, we click on import, but remember we want to put the questions in a category so it's very easy to find. All right, so categories, going to scroll down, and I normally advise use top for the name of the course that you're in. All right, so top for Moodle training course. I'm going to call this demo quiz. All right, scroll down, add category. All right, and my category is here. Okay, so I'm going to now click on import. And remember I mentioned there are about 8 different formats. The one that we're using is a gift format. So we click on gift, scroll down, under general, we select the category that we just created. If we're going to be using this category, we can see that 6 questions are already in it. We don't want that mix up. All right, so we're going to click on the category we just created, which is demo quiz. All right, and do you want the system to stop if there's an error? Yes. All right, and then under import, we're going to click on choose file, and just go to the folder on your computer that has the quiz questions. Click on, double click it rather, and upload. All right, so once you have everything selected properly, scroll down and we click on import. Okay, so normally when there's an error, there is no green, there is just red. And the system will tell you there's an error, and it gives you a little notation of where the error is. Okay, so here we know that this is successful because it says it is importing 4 questions from a file. Click on continue. Good, and this is my category with my questions. I can see them here. If I have multiple categories, and I can always click on them to see the questions in them. So you see the neatness I'm referring to. It's so easy for you to see the different categories and the questions. Now, Mr. Nesbeth, I believe, mentioned something about having questions and if they can be placed in a notepad document. Having pictures, sorry, and if those can be placed in a notepad document. So you would have to edit the questions to have the pictures in them. It can be done in the notepad document. So at this point, you can do that. So let's say for this particular question, I wanted to insert a picture. I would click on edit, edit the question, and in the question text, you'd put your cursor where you want the image to appear. Click on the image icon. I'm just going to grab a random image from my computer, upload this file. I'm going to make the image smaller. All right, and save. Okay, so that is the image right there. So I can always change my marks. I can include general feedback. I can, make modifications to these settings, scroll down, save changes. All right, and it's always good as well, preview your questions before you set them up in the quiz. All right, so let's look at the matching question that we did. If I wanted to preview this, I would click on edit, preview, and this is what it looks like. All right, I think we have a question. Miss Henry, you can take the mic.
Yes, good afternoon. In terms of The default on the quiz for font and color. That's always, I find, time consuming to go through and edit every question. Not perhaps not so much font, but is there no way for the default color on the quiz to be black? And so that you don't need to go through and edit every question for color.
All right, I don't think I understand. So when you say edit for color, you mean changing the font color of the question
Yes,
text?
yes. So when each question goes in, the default is for it to be in a kind of gray. So there's a
Right.
default font and a default color. So is there any way for system administrators to go in and adjust
Mm-hmm.
so that when the questions are imported, that the default
Mm-hmm.
isn't an odd gray color, and then when you're doing the quiz, you have to go in and adjust every question individually, and options for color. For
Right. So
font
the
too, but I think the color is more important than the font.
okay, I've never heard this request before, but it's good. It's good that you brought this up. So the default font style and default font color that is being used by the Moodle system. So I think it's default to the theme that Moodle is using. Based on the selection made by the LTSU department, they are the persons responsible for the back end of the system. So whatever would have been selected there, whatever the theme comes with, that is what is being used. If as the lecturer, you wish to go in and change the font color and the font style, that's possible, but it's a lot of work. It's not possible with this text editor, but you can change your text editor. And I'm considering doing another session after next week to demonstrate how you can improve the aesthetics of your course, and that would be included. All right, is it that you want to know how to do that? No, Miss, what's the name of the person again? Miss
Yeah,
Henry.
yes. No, I'm just wondering if it was possible. It always seems like
Mm-hmm.
there's no way for me to change it, without
Mm-hmm.
doing it individually. So I was just
Oh,
wondering if there is a,
there's no way, no, there's no way. It has to be done individually for each.
oh, okay,
Yeah, because as a system default setting that allows it to have that gray color and that particular font style.
okay.
All right. Dr. Henry,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Telfer, sorry.
Okay.
Dr. Telfer, you can take the mic. Dr. Telfer, you're there? All right. So until Dr. Telfer is able to, I'm seeing your mic, but I'm not hearing you. All right. So we'll continue until you're able to speak, Dr. Telfer. All right. Okay. So we have imported the questions to Moodle, but they're not in the quiz as yet. Do we realize that the questions are here, but they are not in the quiz? So they're in the question bank, they're in this category, they're on Moodle, but not in the quiz. How do we get them in the quiz? Okay. So this is a quiz that we created. It shows the restrictions for date and time. It shows that the quiz is not available if your first name, only if your first name is Tom, last name is Harriet. Okay, so let's click on the quiz. We're going to click on, because we had added some questions, we're not seeing the edit quiz button here anymore, but top right, there's a gear icon. If you click on edit quiz, it takes you back to the same space. All right, now what we're going to be doing, we're going to be adding the questions we just imported to this particular quiz. To do that, we click on the same add button here. Now we're going to be using the option that says add from question bank. Good. So we click on from question bank, and now we get to select the category. So it says select a category. We're going to look for our category. Our category is demo quiz. And we know that is the category because we only added 4 questions to it. All right. So let's say I wanted just 3 of the 4 questions. I could select the 3 that I want. If I wanted all questions, I just click on this and it selects all the questions for me. All right. So let's select 3 questions. and then we hit the button add selected questions to the quiz. All right, so they are now added. So you'll realize that the system gives the question name as a question text. All right, and if I wanted to add another section to accommodate these questions, let's say I want the last 3 questions to be placed in section B. Under question 3, I would just click on add a new section heading. All right, and here we call this section B. All right, so creating the sections is not just for aesthetics. Okay, let's say I'm given a set of questions that I don't want to be shuffled. I want them to follow the same order that I put them on in Moodle. Because even though I selected the option while setting up for the quiz in its entirety to be shuffled, if these aren't enabled, there will be no shuffling. And if I click here, it tells you if enabled, every time the quiz is attempted, the order of the questions in this section will be shuffled into a different random order. But if we go back to the quiz settings, let me just do that quickly to show you. If we go back to the shuffling option, where is that? I think it's on the layout. Is it here? No. Question behavior is where it is, right? Shuffle within questions. It says, if enabled, the parts making up each question will be randomly shuffled each time a student attempts the quiz, provided that the option is also enabled in the question settings. So if it's not enabled in the question settings, which is here, there will be no shuffling. Very important to note. All right, so let's say now I wanted to shuffle section B only, but for section A, I want the questions to appear in the same order given. I could do that. I could add multiple sections, additional sections, and I could choose what I want shuffled, what I don't want to be shuffled. Okay, Dr. Telfer is saying, to increase accessibility, we need to consider systematic change to the color of the questions. The current color is not the easiest to read, and some students have genuine issues reading that text. Not sure if this has changed with the upgrade earlier this year. Lecturers should not have to go through the process of changing the color of every single question and option. I think it is worth discussing with LTSU. I believe, so I've never heard this request before until brought up by Miss Henry, but I believe, yes, Dr. Telford, there has been a change, because I think it was black before, but it's more of a gray hue now. So this is something, and it's a perfect time, because LTSU is in the process of making changes to the system. So every single, or it was blue before, okay, I don't remember that, to be honest with you, but every single request that I get in the training sessions, I make note of them and they are sent to LTSU. All right, so even in our last session, every single query and concern, whether it was reasonable or unreasonable, it was sent to LTSU, and they're actually in the process of making some system changes. All right, so I will also mention this as well, Dr. Telfer and Miss Henry. All right, okay. So we have our sections, we have our questions, we have opted to shuffle section B, and we have opted to leave section A as is. Now we have other options. Let us say we have multiple question banks, right? And we wanted to add random questions from the question banks. So I'm not talking about a question bank with 20 questions, 30 questions. Let's say we had multiple question banks and we wanted the system to randomly pick from the question banks, because these are large question banks. That is what the third option here is for. So a random question. Okay, so let us act now that I'm going to be using one of these categories, because it has a number of questions, quite a number of questions. All right, now I can tell the system that I want from this question bank 20 random questions. So with this option, it's random, which means that I, as a lecturer, I don't get to choose which 20 questions each student will get, but it is being pulled from this question bank of 38. All right, so I would scroll down, click on add random questions, and you see what happens here. 20 random questions have been added. I'm going to create another section so that we can create separation. So add a new section. Let us call this section C. All right, so we have 3 different sections, and we have the system pulling random questions from the last question bank. Okay, all right. Now, what happens? So I'm going to go back to the Moodle course. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the restriction because I want to quickly go in as a student just to show you the view the student gets taking this quiz. All right, so I'm removing the restriction. I'm going to go in as a dummy student. Right? And show you what that looks like. Okay, so I'm in as a student. I'm going to click on the quiz. Click to attempt quiz now. Start attempt. So the system prompts you so much. Your attempt will only have a limit of 1 hour. When you start, time will begin to count down. Timer cannot be paused. You must finish your attempt before it expires. Are you sure you wish to start now? Going to click on start attempt. Okay, and you can see that 1 question is being presented per page, and you can also see that section A is not shuffled. It's in the same order as we had placed on the system. You can also see the timer here counting down. All right, and you can see the different sections here. So you'll realize that the timer follows me wherever I go, it's following me. Okay, so this is an essay type question. Student answers here. All right, because I want to also show you the system doesn't mark these types of questions, the essay type questions. I want to show you how you can go in as a lecturer and mark this type of a question. Okay, so the student submits their response. Remember that this is also free navigation, so they can jump now to question 8 if they want to. All right, so let me just go back to section 1. The question is answered, but the answer, is it recorded? Yes, it is recorded. Yeah. Okay, I was just checking to see if there's a save button. It says that the question requires a response of at least 300 words. Remember, we're setting up this question, we set it up for minimum words to be 300. It says you are attempting to submit 91 words. Please expand your response and try again. So this is what that little red flag here is for. All right, so I'm just going to copy what I have and paste it so it meets the 300 word requirement. All right, so I believe it has now. Yeah, I believe I have about 300 words now. So I'm going to move on to the next question. Okay, let me just jump back to see what is happening because I'm still seeing the flag. Oh, so now it is saying your word limit is 1,000 and you are over submitting. Okay, so let me remove. Interesting, right? Quite interesting. All right, so let us try that again. So this is what our students actually go through. What is it saying now? Okay, so I need to remove some more words still. All right, so I believe that does it. All right, so that is fine now. The red flag is gone. Okay, interesting. All right, so next page. So I'm not going to submit a response for each based on time. I'm just going to jump over to section C. Okay, just enter some responses. 26. All right, and I'm going to click on finish attempt. All right, so it's showing me that the answers are saved for the questions. All right, and it shows me the ones that are not yet answered. Do I want to return to my attempt, or do I want to submit on and finish? Okay, submit all. All right, and it is showing me that this is a summary of my previous attempts. However, as a lecturer, it's set up for summary not to be available until after the quiz is closed. So remember that option that we had entered. All right, I think we have a question. If the student doesn't remove some of your text, will it still be submitted without an issue? So that's a good question. What I saw, Dr. Telfer, is that there was a red flag. So it didn't prevent me from advancing to another question. You would have realized, but it prevented it. It gave me a red flag, which was a notation or a warning. All right, so that is something that we'd have to test to see if it would not be submitted because of that. We have to test that. All right, so this option with the minimum and maximum question requirement is actually a new feature that we had with the latest upgrade. So it is something that we would have to explore. Okay. All right, so that was a question, that was a quiz being taken by the student. So we're gonna go back now to the flip side, which is the lecturer's view, to see to get a review of what the student just did. So we are back in as a teacher. Gonna click on the quiz. Okay, and it shows that there was one attempt on the quiz. So if we click on that, scroll down, it gives an overview, or it's a detailed view, I would say, of the student who has taken the quiz, the state, which is marked as finished because the student clicked the option to submit all and finish. It shows the time and date they started, time and date completed, duration taken. All right, and the overall status is, though it's finished, it's not yet graded because some of the questions require manual marking. So it says question 1 requires grading. So the ones with the dashes are the ones that were not attempted. The ones that says 0 are the ones that the student received incorrect response for. All right, and these of course are ones that are marked automatically by the system. Okay, so if I click on the question that is not yet graded, it allows me to go in, view the question, view the student's response. Okay, and if I click on make comment or override mark, this is how I'm actually able to give my feedback. All right, so make comments, or it shows the student word count as well. Okay, so in that case, Dr. Telfer, remember it said minimum has to be 300, I think I had. Maximum has to be 1,000, so this is 949. Okay, so right, we still don't know because it's still not under 300 or over 1,000, so we still don't know, right? We have to test it. So make comment or override mark. This box here allows me to enter my feedback. So I could enter voice review, excellent work done, you could have done such and such to improve your submission, stop recording. All right, to play it back to ensure that work done, you could have done such and such. All right, we attach the recording and then we enter the mark we're giving the student out of 3. All right, so I'm going to enter 2.5, scroll down and click on save. All right, so it says changes saved. That box closes automatically. And if I go back to demo quiz, click on attempts, scroll down, it now shows that that particular question was graded. And if the student goes back to the quiz, clicks into their gradebook as we had demonstrated last week, they would actually see that that question was marked. So what it is showing here now is that the student has a grade of, so initially this was saying not yet graded. Now it is showing that the student has a grade, so it's 1.34 out of 10 marks. Okay, now of course, if it is that you want to filter your search in terms of the results that you want to see, you can do that. If you want to see attempts from enrolled users who have not attempted the quiz, it shows the names of those who haven't attempted the quiz. If you want to see enrolled users who have attempted the quiz, that is what it shows by default. All right, all users who have attempted the quiz is not relevant to us because only enrolled users can actually take the quiz, take a quiz in Moodle, because they have to go through the process of paying their commitment fee and then doing module selection and then seeing the courses on their dashboard. So if they're not enrolled, they won't have access. So that is not an option. You get to choose the attempts that are in progress or but you finish never submitted based on the results that you want to see. All right. You can also download this report if it's important to you. You can select the format that you want to download it in. If it's Excel, you can select that and export it to your computer for a better view. Okay, so that basically concludes today's session. For next week, we're going to delve into frequently asked questions by lecturers as it relates to technical issues with quizzes. All right, so this ranges from questions like my student sent me an email to say they tried to attempt the quiz, however, they were unable to do so because of such and such. A student said that when they clicked on the quiz, they were not able to take it because it said something about the time. So we have a long list of questions that we, the ODL, receive from lecturers regarding students not being able to access quizzes, them having technical difficulties while doing the quizzes, and of course concerns that lecturers themselves would have had when setting up the quiz. So we want to address those in next week's session. It will be more of an interactive session. I advise as well, if you have any questions or concerns, that you take them with you and we can actually delve into those and look at those, focus on those, for next week's session. Okay, so that will be a part of next week's session, Dr. Telfer, because we have a lot of lecturers who said the student went on and they tried to attempt the quiz, and when we look in the report log, the student never even logged on to Moodle. All right, so it's actually the reports section of the course that you use to get information on that. So we'll definitely be exploring logs, live logs, activity reports, all of that will be explored in next week's session. All right, do we have any additional questions? Do we have any concerns? All right, Miss Davis, I'm seeing your private message. All right, Mr. Henry. Okay, so I had mentioned earlier that we do not send the recordings anymore because we have the recordings uploaded in the training module. All right, so today's recording will be placed at the top of the training module for section 7 or unit 7. So what you can do, just log into Moodle. If you are not seeing this course on your dashboard, all right, just as all right, sorry about that. I just had to take an important call from my office. All right, I don't remember what I was saying to you, but can somebody remind me? I don't remember what I was saying. But anyways, thank you to everybody. Thank
You were updating us that you no longer send recordings
Right, the
anymore.
recordings, right. So these can be accessed from the module, from the training modules. If you're not seeing the module on your dashboard, just send me an email and add it to the module and you'll gain access to everything. So for every session that we have had in the past 2 months, past weeks, you'll be able to access them. Just send me an email to say, Ms. Peck, I'm not seeing the module on my dashboard, and I'll add you and you will gain access. So between today and tomorrow, recording for today's session will be placed in unit 7. All right. Okay, Mr. Clark, good to know. Good to know. All right. Just to add on the issue of the aesthetics of the quiz, the background color also contributes to the difficulty. The word color does not work. So please add the background color to text type and color. So I'll add this as part of Dr. Telford's concern and recommendation. All right, Miss Hall, you can take the mic. If anybody else has a question, you can use your hand as well, or you can type in the chat. Miss Hall. Miss Hall, seeing your mic but not hearing you. All right, thank you, Dr. Telford. Same to you. Take care. All right, anybody else has any question before we go? Any concerns? All right, Miss Moore, take care.
Hi, Miss Peck.
Hello, Mr. Nesbeth.
Just want to thank you. It was a great session. You were very effective, very efficient. I'm very pleased to see how agile, well, that is not really agility, how knowledgeable you are of the system, really, and how you are able to manipulate it in any way or fashion that suits our needs. It's greatly, greatly appreciated.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. Nesbeth. You are most welcome.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right, Miss Holt, I'll double check on that right now for you. All right. All right. So thanks again to everyone and see you next week. Take care. Bye bye. All right, Miss Brown, Nadia Brown. Okay, no problem. So if anybody else has that issue, just send an email to me, Michaela Peck.